Reverend Freakchild here live on WNCW on a Monday morning. Wow, a whole lot of highlights I got to point out in that tune. One of them, what a great segue into that Bob Dylan classic, in and out of it.
Yeah, Bob, the ghost of Bob Dylan appears in that song from time to
He
time. He's not even dead yet.
Yeah, right. And a wonderful adaptation of "See That My Grave Is Kept Clean" to make it a
Thanks.
revering of our ancestors.
Yeah, and that's a kind of a Bob Dylan tribute. Chris Parker, who plays on this latest album and played a couple albums with me, he used to play with Dylan in the 80s. And we actually just did the Riverbend Festival in Chattanooga. And last time he'd played that festival, he said it was 28 years ago with Bob Dylan on the main stage. So I was like, wow, that's kind of cool. And we kind of did a duo, kind of like a White Stripes, Black Keys thing, blues duo, just drums and guitar. But anyway, it was amazing. We recorded this It's All Right, Ma, I'm Only Bleeding on the last album. And we got my friend Jay Collins, who used to play with Greg Allman. God bless him, another ancestor that's passed away. And he played some sax on that and made it more like a morphine, not the drug, the band kind of a track.
Yeah, right.
But anyway, that tune, See That My Grave Is Kept Clean, is actually a tune that Dylan did on his first album.
It is.
So it's kind of like a little, I thought, oh, wow, throw a little Dylan in there, a little ode to the ode to the ode to the ode, So like a little complicated history there. And the mythology goes on,
Yeah,
so.
that's great.
Yeah.
I also want to highlight folks listening at the beginning of the song. It was one of the best, most masterful uses of tuning the guitar during the song I've ever witnessed. I mean, it added a lot more drama to it.
Oh man, you should see my jazz cat friends in Europe, man. Like they're playing tunes and they're like boom boom, like talking to somebody, smoking a cigarette.
Yeah.
And they're still like up at 360 doing giant steps. Da boo ba boo boo. Hey, how you been?
Right.
It's like those guys are amazing.
Yeah.
So I learned a little tricks from them. But yeah, hey, nobody heard that, a little out of tune, but it was bugging me just enough. That I had
It
to-
was a terrific example of multitasking under pressure. Yeah.
Well, you got to put the schizophrenia to good use. Otherwise it just you get into trouble.
Yeah. Reverend Freakchild here on WNCW. He's got all sorts of pearls of wisdom. I just knew it before meeting him. You do a great version of that. It's All Right, Ma, I'm Only Bleeding on this new one, Dial It In.
That was a tune that
was
I put those there's like 15 verses plus the choruses to memory, like back in my 20s. And I remember I went on this. My dad's a big he was a military guy, but he was a Boy Scout too, so he's a big fan of the outdoors. And he'd always tell me, the great outdoors, the great equalizer, And he'd take me to all these national parks and he took me to Yosemite one time, and I'd been working on this tune, and we went on this big, long hike. And, you got a lot of downtime on a hike, You're talking, and you're singing songs, and whatever, laughing, and then all of a sudden it was a little silent, and I just went in, and I launched into this whole tune. And my dad was like, I think at that point he was like, whoa, you're really serious about this stuff, Like, you just memorized this, like, tome of a song. Yeah. And I'd read this Bob Dylan interview about, like, how it was one of his favorite songs. And it really does. I mean, I just quoted a couple verses there. Some of my favorite ones, advertising signs, they con you into thinking you're the one that can win what's never been done, Meantime, life goes on all around you. But it really, it's such a beautiful piece of poetry. And even Dylan admitting that he can't write something like that anymore. But playing it with Chris, we were just jamming around in the studio, and it was like this punk rock avant-garde jazz version that we were doing. And it was amazing to feel he had played this with Dylan, like, that's all right, Ma, like the rock and roll version. And so we kind of, the folky version, the rock and roll version, and then Jay Collins, who's just this amazing saxophone player. And we've been friends, and I was in New York for years and back in the jazz scene there. And I said, Jay, we really need some help on this tune, man. It's just all over the place. And he came in, and he just blew a Barry solo, or a Barry part, and then a tenor solo over it. And it just came out amazing. I mean, it's like sort of this jazzy kind of version, and I think it's apropos for the times we're living in still. So anyway,
yeah. Oh, you do a lot of great genre blending.
Yeah,
jazz and blues, they're often kind of going hand in hand, but bringing in punk and others.
Yeah,
one of your albums is called the Hillbilly Zen Punk Blues.
Yeah, and that was funny too, because I was always sounding like we're like Zen punk blues, because I'm not really like, I'm an alternative blues kind of guy. Always coming out of the blues. My mom was a classical pianist. She tried to turn me into one of those. It didn't work. There was a lot of, I hear you practicing in there. Yeah, Mom, all right. Like, bum, bum, boom, boom, boom. What I mean? And so my dad turned me on the blues, like Muddy Waters and Howlin' Wolf, and Sonny Boy Williamson is a big fan of the harp players, and we would drive around in Hawaii, and I just remember like not having to wear my seatbelt, my dad blasting blues tunes, and I must have listened to that Rumors album 1,000 times. This was the '70s, some Neil Diamond, maybe a couple of tracks of ABBA, but yeah, my dad turned me onto the rock and roll, and it's just it's a way for me to get that music out that my mama gave me, and the classical world is so intense, I got nothing against that. I go to the symphony in Denver with my girlfriend, and
Cool.
It's beautiful, but that's a different world playing that stuff. So
Yeah, yeah. We're talking with Reverend Freakchild on WNCW. He's just doing a little radio tour, visiting the stations like WNCW on his way around this part of the country.
Yeah, and I love doing these shows, man, because,
Yeah.
we played a big festival in Chattanooga, and there was thousands of people, and I play these little gigs, here and there and stuff like that, and I like these radio shows because, you can just tell the people out there, just lay your hands on the radio, people, like the old tradition. It's going to be all right. If you've got any cancer, arthritis, rheumatism, just listen to the radio. And a great radio like this, it's going to heal your soul, you know what I'm saying? Anyway.
I'm getting channeled back to a time when we had another Reverend in Studio B, Reverend Billy C. Wirtz.
Yeah, the piano player.
He may
He's
have
great.
given the very same advice.
No, he's great, man. And that Live from Bethlehem CD, I listened to it over and over again. I actually had this idea of doing an all Reverends album because I have some friends that are friends with Billy, and I got Reverend Billy up in New York, and then there's Reverend Horton Heat, and a whole bunch of other Reverends. I just have this concept album, like doing all tunes with all Reverends. What do you think about that? That might be kind of cool.
You might be onto something. You might be onto something. Yeah, I'd go to that
Anyway.
church.
Yeah.
Let's hear another tune.
Sure, yeah, no. Well, we were talking about this. There's a new video out for this tune called Hippie Blues Man Blues, and it's quite psychedelic, but it's all about San Francisco, and, I love the hippie thing. I did my fair share of psychedelics back in the day, but I'm going on 12 years sober here, so kids stay in school, don't do drugs. But, I was out there, and I was playing some gigs and doing some radio and everything, and I got all my stuff unwillingly liberated from me. I got smashed and grabbed, man. Guitars, ukulele, gig bag with $400, and they even took my clean laundry, man. I mean, it was brutal. Anyway, as I'm driving back to the monastery, I was staying at, I thought, how am I gonna lock up my car? And as the wind was blowing through the broken windows, I was like, oh, there's no stuff to lock up, man. So I was like, oh, maybe I'll just donate my car to the monastery and become a monk. And I called my girlfriend, and she's like, no, don't do that. So anyway, I wrote this song about it, but it's I talked to my lama, and he's like, you got to bring these obstacles onto the path of awakening, and I went back to the good book, and in Matthew and Luke it says, love your enemies, not like them, and it says, if they take your cloak, give them your tunic too. I just got to figure out what a tunic is, and then I'll give it to you. Anyway, this is a tune called Hippie Blues Man Blues, and the Miwok people, the Aboriginal people in the San Francisco Bay Area used to call the San Francisco Bay the mouth of the sundown sea.